Originally entitled Clayfighter 3 and intended for Matsushida's M2 console, the planned successor to the 3DO, Interplay decided to jump ship and port the game over to the PlayStation and the Nintendo 64 when it became obvious that the M2 wasn't going to make it to stores. For reasons unknown, the PlayStation version was quietly cancelled, leaving just the development of the N64 version, which shipped in '97. For all intents and purposes, Clayfighter 63 1/3 is the remnants of that original M2 project, trying to mold together as best it can. Is the game's foundation solid, or did it require a little longer in the kiln? Clayfighter 63 1/3 runs the standard fare of fighting games with an uninteresting story involving Dr. Kiln's attempt to take over the world for his evil experiments, aided and abetted by his cohorts, some of which share similar ambitions. Bad Mr. Frosty, a reformed character, is out to stop him with the help of various oddball characters, including, rather bizarrely, Earthworm Jim, who is apparently vacationing in the area as a lame excuse to add a character known to the masses. It's silly and pointless, but who's really playing a fighting game for its story anyway? You can change the control button layout and difficulty setting, but otherwise the options are effectively non-existent. In-game characters number 9 initial and 12 in total, making the selection pretty standard fare. The 3 additional characters are unlocked via completing the game on higher difficulty levels. However, a lack of any kind of save feature, either via battery backup or the controller pack, will leave you wondering why Interplay decided to lock him away, forcing players to either unlock him each time or use built-in cheat codes. Why lock him away without the ability to save data? It's totally nonsensical. The game itself has one mode, a basic arcade mode, which is divided into 6 random battles against the computer, ending in a boss fight with Dr. Kiln. You can also play against a friend in versus battle. Why do you want to play a friend on this when there are so much better games to play is another matter. Each fight consists of one long round with a 2-bar life system, similar to the one used in Killer Instinct. Whoever drains both bars wins the fight. This can lead to battles becoming rather one-sided, particularly if there's a large discrepancy between the opponents in skill level. Mentioning Killer Instinct is hardly surprising, because for better or worse, the Clayfighter series has always borrowed and outright stolen elements from other fighting games in the genre, and 63 1/3 is no exception. Every control system is stolen from one game franchise or another. From super moves, aping nose of Street Fighter, the fatalities of Mortal Kombat, and above everything else, the combo system of Killer Instinct. And once you learn this last part, the game simply turns into waiting for an opening to let loose a combo. While you can attempt combos in the same way as Street Fighter, including pulling off various super moves of varying effectiveness, it is the Killer Instinct combo system knockoff that gives the best results. All it mostly requires is a charged or jumped-in attack followed by a middle hard punch or kick, then rotating the stick from forward to down. Repeat ad nauseum. Using this knowledge against a hapless computer leads to some very easy victories. Against another human, it simply degenerates into both players watching for an opening and attempting to pull off a combo. It quickly becomes boring. Each character can also perform a finishing combo when the opponent is in the red. These are purely for show and are astonishingly easy to pull off, requiring one motion input in a normal combo for 100 plus hit attacks. You can also pull off claytalities after defeating your opponent, none of which are pulled off with any kind of a plume. The game's AI is laughable to poor, seemingly intent on either blocking or repeatedly jumping away, leaving you half the time just trying to get close to your opponent to kill them. On the harder difficulty settings, this gets even more prevalent, to the point where you can spam the LP button and watch the enemy just block you while your attacks are not even close to hitting them. Occasionally the computer will actually try to put up a fight, and you may even pull off a combo, only to revert back to the game. In the end, Clayfighter 63 1/3 just isn't very fun or engaging to play. Most of the game's mechanics are likely to remind players of the much better games that it's ripping off, and make them wonder why they're not playing them instead. The animation for the game was provided by Danger Productions, a company whose most notable work was the stop-motion series One for the Night. Here the animation is, for lack of a better word, choppy. It's also fairly bland and lacks any distinct character. You also have to wait for animations to run their course. Buffering is pretty much out of the equation here. Added to this is the low resolution that the character sprites have been added in, making them blurry and ill-defined, even by Nintendo 64 standards. The characters all hail from stereotype city of the kind that was prevalent in the 1930s and 40s animation, stereotypes that we should have graduated from years ago. If the idea of a buck-toothed Chinese man speaking in broken English sounds appealing to you, or the prospect of Booger Man, having to play a guest character added to the game, farting whilst claiming that you can almost taste it, draws you to the game, then perhaps you should get a better kind of humour. The backgrounds fare a little better, rendered in full 3D, but even here they have the tendency to clash with the 2D characters, and most are outright void of anything interesting to look at, or so uniform in their coloration that they are just rather bland. You can be bumped from one to another via doors or the like, but this is effectively little more than just a change of scenery. The camera is also not very reliable. We're getting stuck behind pieces of the foreground every so often, especially when you're attempting combos. At these times it can completely block a character from view, which is annoying and makes actually controlling the game a chore. One part of the audio does excel is the voice work, with renowned animation voice actors like Jim Cummins, Dan Castellaneta, Ford Paulson, and Frank Welker providing their collective vocal talent to the proceedings. Topping off the cast is veteran announcer Michael Buffer, commentating in the background and starting the fights off with a slightly modified version of his famous catchphrase. However, having some of the best people in the industry won't help the script based on lame one-liners that quickly get repeated beyond the joke and become tiresome as a result. The Clayfighter series has its infamous reputation for a reason, and with its woeful mechanics, choppy animation, bland backgrounds, moronic AI, an obstinate camera, and irresponsive controls mean that Clayfighter 63 1/3 is no exception to that rule. It is a bad excuse for a fighting game, and should be avoided, because unless you have a thing for its brand of toilet humour, there is little to entertain the player here. It's not so much a case of whether it needs longer in the kiln, but whether it should have been smashed into oblivion when it was a mere malleable piece of clay.